My name is Packey. I was a baby elephant when I came to live in the big zoo. A little girl gave me my name. Would you like to know how it happened? One day, Eloise and her mother came to visit the zoo. It was the little girl's 6th birthday, and she liked more than anything else to come to the zoo to see the animals from all over the world. Eloise carried a paper bag. When the little girl first saw me in the elephant house, she exclaimed, "Oh, look, Mother, see that baby Packey, Pachyderm," her mother chimed in, helping Eloise to pronounce the big word that refers to the elephant family. "I'm going to name him Packey," Eloise decided, clapping her hands in glee. The keeper heard Eloise. He thought Packey was a good name for me, too, so ever since I've been called Packey. I stood near the fence watching Eloise as she reached in the paper bag and brought out a popcorn ball. She broke off a piece and tossed it to me, saying, "Here's a treat for you, little Packey." I had never tasted sweet popcorn before. Yum, yum, how I enjoyed it. I wanted more popcorn. And before Eloise could break off another piece, I curled my trunk around the ball of popcorn and stuffed it in my mouth. Eloise jumped up and down, laughing. "Oh, Mother, Packey took it all." "Evidently, Packey likes your popcorn ball," Mother answered with a smile. After that, I always watched for Eloise. Whenever I saw her coming, I became excited, for I knew she was bringing me a special gift. Sometimes it was cookies with raisins and nuts, or peanuts, or a piece of banana bread. Eloise and her mother were my friends. When I was a baby elephant, my mother and I were caught in the wild jungles of India. I was brought to the zoo in a giant airplane that flew across the ocean. The zoo was strange and different from my jungle home. Here I found some frightening noises that I had never heard before. Toot, toot, went the shrill whistle of the little train which took the children for a ride. Ding, 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 dong, clanged the train bell. I soon learned to like these sounds at the zoo, and I enjoyed my new home. It was here that I first saw the children and heard them laugh. They liked to watch me because I was a baby elephant. How they chattered and squealed when I caught a peanut or a piece of candy in my little trunk. Their happy voices made me happy, too. A few months after I came to live at the zoo, I was put in the new elephant house. On 2 sides of the yard, there were high walls with large rooms at the back. In the front, there was a wide ditch between the elephants and the fence where people stood to watch. The ditch was too wide and too deep for even Bumbo, the largest elephant, to step across. "You won't need the chain fastened to your foot anymore," our keeper said, but I fooled him later, as you will see. I liked my new home, except for one thing. I had to stand so far back from the boys and girls that I could not reach my trunk out far enough to get the goodies they held out to me. I tried and tried to reach across the ditch whenever Eloise came to visit. Sometimes the peanut or cookie she threw to me fell into the ditch. "Poor Packey," she would say. "You missed that cookie." One day a boy named Jerry stood by the fence, his pockets bulging with peanuts and popcorn. Sandy, one of the other elephants, and I stood on the edge of the ditch, reaching out our trunks to beg for goodies. I stretched and stretched as far as my legs would go. Sandy got in my way, so I pushed her. That made her mad, and she swung her trunk around and slapped me and gave me a big push. Woo! I lost my balance and toppled over into the ditch, right into a puddle of water. Plunk! I screamed and trumpeted for help. The boys and girls shouted excitedly, "Packey fell in the ditch." Jerry called for the keeper to come. The man ran to the ditch and looked down at me. "Well, Packey, how did you get down there?" I trumpeted my fiercest call and waved my trunk wildly back and forth in reply. "What shall we do to get you out?" the puzzled keeper asked as he scratched his chin. The keeper went away to find the zoo director. Soon the 2 men came back with several helpers who carried boards and saws and hammers and nails. The men began to saw the boards and fasten them with nails. I did not like all the noise of sawing and hammering. I squealed and tried to climb out, but every time I put my feet up on the side of the ditch, I fell back down. What a predicament I was in. One of the men put a ladder into the ditch, and he climbed down to where I was. Another man followed the first one down the ladder. Then the men at the top slid some boards into the ditch, and before long they had built a steep board walk called a ramp. I was supposed to walk up this ramp, but I did not like the idea. Even though I was a young elephant, I weighed more than 1,000 pounds. Every time I tried to climb up, I slid back and went splash into the puddle of water in the ditch. "Go on, Packey, walk up the ramp," the men begged as they pushed me and prodded me along. I tried as hard as I could, but I slid back each time. Finally, the men gave up and climbed out of the ditch. I wondered how I would ever get out. Why had I been so piggish? If I had not been so selfish and pushed Sandy, I wouldn't be in such a predicament. Soon the men came back with a harness. They fastened it around my stomach. Then the men at the top pulled and tugged while the men at the bottom pushed. I got about halfway up the boards when zip! I slid back to the bottom on top of one of the men. We both went splash into the puddle. I think the fall hurt him, for the other man helped him up the ladder and he didn't come back. Finally, the zoo director came with a block and tackle. "We'll have you out of here in a jiffy," he promised, as he fastened the harness securely to the chain. I was lifted up, up, up. They swung me around in the air. I squealed and kicked, but before I knew what was happening, I was on the ground safe and sound. I learned a good lesson not to push and shove, and I never fell into the ditch again. I liked my zoo home. My elephant friends were Vicky, Sandy, Nellie, and old Bumbo. We had plenty of good food, and the keeper was kind to us. Vicky was a clever elephant who knew how to make people laugh. She was sly, and she enjoyed teasing our keeper, Ole Johansson. When Ole was not watching, she would turn on the water faucet and get a drink, and then she would squirt water on him or on a visitor who might be standing nearby. Of course, everyone laughed who saw this prank. Vicky was nearly grown when I came to live in the elephant house, but we became good friends. We liked to be together. One night, our keeper came in as he always did and patted our heads and trunks and told us to go to sleep. He usually slept nearby, but this night he went out and did not come back. We had not been asleep long when we were awakened by bright flashes of lightning and a loud clap of thunder. Crash! Boom! The thunder rolled. The storm brought a downpour of rain. There was more thunder and lightning, and we were afraid. Vicky moved closer to me, and all the elephants huddled together. Again, a bright flash made the sky almost as light as day. Boom, boom, the thunder rolled. Vicky and I tried to get out, but we were locked in the elephant house. What could we do? Another clap of thunder rolled overhead louder than any before. We jumped forward and pushed with all our strength. The door broke open, and we hurried out into the rain. We looked for our keeper, but we could not find him. Then we got the scent of a man inside a closed truck nearby. By shaking the truck, we woke the man, and he opened the door. "What do you elephants want?" he asked. We tried to tell him we were scared and wanted company. Although he was not our keeper, we were happy to find him. Vicky put her trunk around the man's waist and lifted him off the ground. I put my trunk under his arms, and we began to walk back and forth in the rain with the man safely tucked in between us. Somehow we felt better in the storm with this man beside us, but we were all afraid, even the man. We walked around the zoo grounds until it began to get light. When the storm was over, we put the man down, and he led us back to the elephant house. "You are well named, Packey," he said, "for you certainly like to pack people around." The morning was beautiful after the storm. The trees and bushes sparkled in the sunshine after having been washed clean by the rain. When the gates of the zoo were open, people began to come. Fathers and mothers brought their boys and girls to have a wonderful picnic. I stood on the edge of the wide ditch as close to the visitors as I could get. All day, the boys and girls brought good things for us to eat. I kept looking up and down the path for my friend Eloise. Would she come today, I wondered. It was getting late in the afternoon, and there was no sign of Eloise. There were so many people crowding around the fence, I was afraid I might not see her. Then I heard a familiar voice calling, "Packey, Packey, guess what I brought you today?" I saw Eloise in a pretty red and white dress, squeezing her way between the visitors until she got up to the fence in front of me. How happy I was to see Eloise. She reached in her bag and threw me the most delicious cookie I had ever tasted. "Do you like my macaroon?" she asked. Eloise and her mother gave me all the goodies they had in the paper bag. Then the girl leaned over the fence and said quietly, "Packey, I'll not see you for a long time. I have to go away with my daddy and mother." Then she added, "How I will miss you, Packey." When she left, I was sad, but I knew I would always remember Eloise and watch for her. One morning, our keeper, Ole, came as usual to open the tall doors so we could go out of the elephant house into the yard. As Ole went out the back door, somehow it did not lock behind him. When Vicky and I discovered the unlatched door, we decided to see what was on the other side. I wanted to search for Eloise, who had gone away. Vicky started across the green pasture where the buffalo graze. Since it was early in the morning, there were no visitors in the zoo, and the keepers were busy caring for the animals. No one saw us as we wandered around the zoo visiting the other animals. The monkeys chattered excitedly at us as we walked by their cages. The bears growled in their grottos, and the huge hippopotamus peered curiously at us with his beady eyes. Then Vicky scooted up a side street, and I followed close behind. We were starting out on a big adventure. When we reached the first corner, we saw Mrs. Trowbridge walking along the sidewalk, pushing a baby buggy, while her small boy Tommy walked beside her. "Oh, look, Mother," shouted the excited boy. "2 elephants are coming." When Tommy's mother turned around, she saw 2 elephants walking close behind her. "Oh, help!" cried the frantic mother. Mrs. Trowbridge snatched the baby out of the buggy, grabbed Tommy's hand, and ran into a telephone booth. Then what do you think Vicky did? She took one look at the baby buggy and curled her trunk over its handle. She began to push it down the sidewalk as if she were the mother pushing her baby. Vicky's eyes were twinkling and her tail was wigwagging to let me know she was enjoying herself. People looked out of their windows and laughed when they saw Vicky pushing the baby buggy. Vicky smelled something good inside the buggy. Mrs. Trowbridge had been to the market, and in the front of the buggy were 2 sacks of groceries. Vicky pulled out one of the sacks. Yes, it did smell good. Vicky and I stopped in the middle of the street and ate a box of oatmeal quicker than you can count to 20. There were tin cans in the sack, too, but we tossed them away, and they went clackety-clank down the street. About this time, a small sports car came around the corner and roared up the street toward us. Pop, pop, went the motor. Squeak, squeak, went the brakes. As the driver, Sammy Stump, brought the car to a quick stop. What a noisy car. Vicky and I were a little scared, but we were also curious. We ambled over to take a closer look. When Sammy saw us coming, he scrambled out of the seat, ran to the sidewalk, and climbed the first steps he saw. Vicky curled her trunk inside the car and pulled out a hat, some shoes, and a coat. She smelled something to eat, so she nudged around in the pockets and found a sack of candy. Yum, the candy was good. Vicky sat down to enjoy it. But where do you think she parked herself? She sat down on the front fender of the little automobile. Crunch, crunch. The fender gave way and Vicky hit the pavement with a thud. All the while, Sammy Stump shouted excitedly, "Go away! Leave my car alone!" As we walked along, the boys and girls laughed and shouted at us from the windows. What fun they were having watching us parade up the street. I looked and looked for Eloise, but I did not see her in any of the windows. Vicky led the way around the next corner. Across the street, she saw a wide doorway. As she headed straight for the opening, I was close behind. We walked into a warehouse and found a man lying on the cement floor under a big yellow tractor. We wondered what was wrong, so we went over to see, but we got tangled up on the way. One of the helpers yelled, "Mike, look, you have company." Imagine Mike's surprise when he saw 8 elephant legs tangled up in his spray rig and felt the hose he was using to spray paint on the bottom of the tractor start to pull away from him. Mike quickly rolled out from under the tractor, exclaiming, "Whoopee! What is this, a circus?" He shot some yellow paint on Vicky's trunk and then raced out the nearest door. Some of the sticky paint got on me, too. We shook and shook trying to get it off. There were so many tractors in the warehouse, we had to climb over one machine and push another one out of the way to get out. In the doorway stood a giant machine we couldn't squeeze by. That did not stop us. We put our heads against it and quickly shoved it right out the door into the alley. Vicky knocked over a garbage can, and it went clattering down the street. When it came to a stop, she stepped into the can. The garbage can stuck on her foot like a tin shoe. She kicked and kicked, but the tin shoe did not shake loose. I came to her rescue by pulling it off with my trunk while she held up her foot. We shuffled along until we came to the main street of the city, where many people were walking and cars were buzzing here and there. It was funny to watch the people scurry inside the stores when they saw us. The cars got out of our way, too, and soon the street was empty. Sniff, sniff. We smelled popcorn. Where was it? As we trudged on down the wide street, we found the popcorn stand. We pushed a couple of parked cars out of the way to get up to the popcorn. I wondered if Eloise was in the store, since she often brought me popcorn. The girl selling popcorn wasn't Eloise. When she saw us, she shouted, "Whee!" She dropped a sack of popcorn on the floor and ran out the side door. There were many bags of peanuts, sacks of candy, buckets of popcorn, and boxes of Cracker Jack. Yum, yum. We had never seen so many good things to eat. Peanuts and candy and popcorn. We ate and ate until there was none left. We heard a train whistle as we ambled up the street. Toot, toot. Was this the little railroad train at the zoo? No, we found we were near the railroad yards. We walked through big doors into the station waiting room. What a commotion we made! When the ticket seller behind a little window looked up and saw an elephant's trunk waving before his eyes, he was so frightened he jumped on top of the counter and scattered tickets all over the floor. A red cap spilled a cart of luggage, and a little girl dropped her dolly on the floor. Toot, toot! An engine whistled outside. Toot, toot! "All aboard!" called the conductor. When we poked our heads through the station door, we saw the train go chugging down the tracks. Choo, 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 choo. After tipping over a couple of suitcases and stepping on a lady's hat box, we left the railroad station in search of further adventure. By this time, we wanted a drink of water, for the peanuts, popcorn, and candy made us thirsty. Seeing some trees and bushes nearby, we hurried toward them. Soon we found we were in a park that reminded us of the jungle. We tramped through a green hedge and flattened a bed of pansies on our way to a pool of water. There were water lilies and goldfish in the pool. When we waded in, the fish darted out of sight as quick as a wink. Vicky and I sucked the cool water into our trunks and squirted it into our mouths. We drank and drank. Then we spouted water all over our backs and took a bath. The clean, cool water felt delicious. We frolicked in the water until we saw 2 boys playing catch with a ball. It looked like fun, so we ventured near. Plop! The ball hit the ground beside us. I picked up the ball with my trunk and walked away. The boys came running after me, shouting, "Give us our ball!" While I was trying to find out whether the ball was good to eat, Vicky saw our keeper coming through the park toward us. She trumpeted and ran into the thick shrubbery. I dropped the ball and followed close behind her. Our keeper had not discovered we were missing until telephone calls began to pour into the office at the zoo. The police station called to report that 2 elephants were loose on the streets. The director of the zoo sent our keeper and his helpers to find us. The keeper whistled and called, "Vicky, Packey, come back!" But we pushed deeper into the brush until we were all tangled up. The men almost caught us, but we trumpeted so sharply they were afraid to come near. We stayed in the bushes all night. We could hear the men calling for us to come out, but we didn't move. The next day we were hungry, so we ventured out, and that was when our keeper lured us with grain and hay. Before we knew it, we were back at the elephant house with Sandy, Nellie, and old Bumbo. Our adventure was over, and I had not found Eloise anywhere. Weeks and months went by, and then one by one the years rolled by until almost 10 years had passed. I watched for Eloise, but she did not come. I wondered if I would ever see her again. One day I was lying down in the yard. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice calling, "Packey, Packey, come here." I raised my big ears and listened. It sounded like the voice of Eloise, but I could not see her anywhere. I pushed my big body up as quickly as I could and walked over to the edge of the ditch. Boys and girls were standing by the fence, and a big girl was leaning over the fence as close as she could get. "Packey, don't you remember me?" the big girl asked. "I am your old friend Eloise." Then I made a low rumble in my throat and trembled all over because I was so happy. I tried to tell Eloise in my elephant way that I did remember her. She had grown up to be a kind and thoughtful young lady, and when she returned to the city, she came to visit me. I had not forgotten my friend Eloise either, for you know, an elephant never forgets.
The zookeeper calls me Pokey. I wonder why. Does he think I am slow and pokey? I'm not, for I've slipped out of my cage and run away 2 times. Maybe I'm called Pokey because I'm always poking my way into some mischief. I have not lived in the zoo very long, for I was born in the high mountains of India. I have black fur all over me except for one band of white on my chest. That little band looks something like a horseshoe. I guess that is for good luck. How happy I was when I lived in the mountains of India with Mama Bear. My little twin brother and I had the most fun together. We were 2 lively cubs romping all over our cave home. Sometimes we even scampered up on Mama Bear's back. When she got tired of our playing, she would slap us with her big front paw. It didn't hurt much, but we knew Mama Bear meant for us to obey her, so we would stop teasing and go to sleep. I loved Mama Bear. Her fur was soft and warm to snuggle against at night, and I felt safe when she was near me. One day, Mama Bear went out to get food for us. She told us to stay inside our cave home and be as quiet as mice. We wanted to go with her, but we knew bear cubs were not supposed to go out of the cave. Mama Bear told us we must grow older and wiser first. Little brother Cub and I felt lonesome after Mama Bear left. We wondered where she had gone, so we went to the mouth of the cave to peek out. The sunshine was warm and inviting. We could not see any danger, so we took a few steps outside. How good the fresh earth smelled. We sniffed the bushes and tasted some berries. Then we saw something moving in the bushes near us. Cub Brother and I were curious. We waddled over to see what it was. And that was when we made a terrible mistake. Suddenly something grabbed me, and I was pushed inside a big sack. I growled and snarled and tried to bite, but I was rolled up like a ball inside that sack. I tried to wiggle, but I could hardly move. If I had only obeyed Mama Bear, I would be back in my snug little nest in my cave home. I cried and whimpered for Mama Bear. Oh, where was she? How I needed her. I was so frightened. I clawed and scratched until I was tired out. Then I guess I went to sleep. The next thing I knew, I was riding in something that went bumpety-bump, bumpety-bump. We rode and rode for many hours. I was getting very hungry. Why didn't Mama Bear come and bring me something to eat? After a long time, I smelled food. A man opened the sack and gave me some bananas to eat. After I ate all I wanted, the man put me in a box. I liked the box better than the sack. I could stand up and look out between the cracks. But it wasn't like home. What was that sound? I was so scared I was shaking when the man picked up my box and carried me closer to that horrible noise. I found that it was a train. The man put my box with me inside it in the baggage car. Then he went away and left me all alone. Now I was really frightened. I growled and whined when the train made strange noises. Then it jerked so hard, I fell down in the corner of my box. The train now started to move. It rocked me back and forth, until I went to sleep. When I woke up, I smelled water. The train slowed down. The brakes squealed. And we stopped. The man came and opened my box and gave me some fruit to eat. I was glad when he took me away from that noisy train. He carried me up a gangplank to the deck of a big ship. I watched the sailors walking around on the deck. When any of them stopped to look at me, I growled my deepest growl. Growl, growl. The sailors would laugh and walk away. After much shouting by the sailors, the boat moved slowly away from the pier. The man came and opened my box again. This time he put a chain around my neck and let me walk around the deck of the ship. How I enjoyed getting out of that stuffy box. Long before I wanted to stop, the man got tired of walking. He tied my chain to a rail, and then he sat down in a comfortable deck chair. I felt so good I rolled and stretched and romped. The sunshine was warm, and it made my soft black fur glisten. How I hated to be put back in the box. The man carried me down a stairway and put me in a dark room. Many boxes and barrels were stacked everywhere. I could smell food in some of those barrels, and it made me hungry. I guess I am always hungry. I felt lonesome in the dark. How I wished Mama Bear would come and take me back to the cave so I could play with my twin brother. When all was quiet, I pushed my nose between the boards of my box. I poked and pushed so hard, I finally got one of the boards off. Then I squeezed until I got out. At last, I was free. I walked around and sniffed the boxes and barrels. Then I found a cozy spot behind some boxes where there was a pile of soft padding. I curled up and soon dreamed I was snuggled close to Mama Bear. I liked my new home so much I didn't want anyone to find me. There was a bunch of bananas and some other fruit in the corner, so I had plenty to eat whenever I was hungry. The next day, I heard some men open the door and come into my room. They looked for me in my box. They were surprised to see that it was empty. I kept as quiet as a mouse. They searched and searched, but couldn't find me. I was in the dark behind a big machine. Finally, the men went away. Later, the captain and some of the sailors came to look for me, but they didn't find me either. I heard the captain say, "Poor little bear. He must have wandered up on deck and fallen overboard." I was glad when the men left, for I could enjoy my bananas and other fruit. Then I went to sleep. I chuckled to myself. Here I was, all safe and snug in a soft bed. And best of all, I had plenty to eat. Many days passed before the sailors found me. What a fuss they made over me. The man took me on deck and tied me to the rail again. I stretched and rolled in the warm sunshine. All the sailors seemed happy to see me. Even the captain stopped to watch me. I guess they were glad I hadn't fallen overboard. At last the day came when our boat sailed near the land. I wriggled my nose and sniffed the smell of trees and grass. As we sailed into the harbor, we saw a tall bridge ahead of us. Our boat went right under it. The sailors were talking about the Golden Gate. Finally, our boat docked at a pier in San Francisco. My new home was to be in this big city. I heard the honk-honk of auto horns and the ding-ding of the cable car bells. It was here that I first met the zookeeper. I think he must have been expecting me on this boat, for he had a truck waiting at the dock. He put my box on the truck and took me out to the Flyshacker Zoo. Isn't that a long name for the home of a little bear? I was not very fat when I arrived at the zoo. The keeper put me in a special cage near his office. He gave me all I wanted to eat: melons, lettuce, bread, milk, and many kinds of fruit. I ate and ate, and the good food helped me grow. I felt so good I decided I would get out of the cage. I wanted to go and find Mama Bear. Every day I chewed and chewed on the wooden bars of my cage. The hole got bigger and bigger. When I poked my nose in the hole, it was almost big enough to squeeze through. The next day, the zookeeper saw the hole I had chewed, so he moved me to an iron cage. Since iron is too hard to chew, he was certain I was safe. But wait, I fooled him later. Many boys and girls came by my cage. Some of them would stop and watch me for a long time. I climbed up the bars of the cage looking for a way to get out. Then I would slide down the bars, bumpity-bump, bumpity-bump. How the children laughed. I liked to imagine I was chasing Cub Brother around and around in the forest. Sometimes I skidded on the wet pavement and slid to the other side of the cage. The boys and girls laughed and laughed. The more I played, the more people stopped to look at me. This was great fun. One day when no one was around, I poked my head between the iron bars. I squeezed and squeezed and pushed and pushed. Finally, I squeezed out through the iron bars. It was wonderful to be free, but where should I go? I ran across the road and hid in some bushes. I kept very quiet so that no one found me. When it was dark, I ran into the woods. If I heard anyone coming near, I hid in the bushes. The woods were not far from the ocean. At night, I went down to the beach to look for food. I found some scraps that picnickers had left in the sand. One evening, a man saw me and came running after me. I hid in some berry bushes so he didn't find me. It was fun to be free. If only I could find Mama Bear, everything would be all right. One night after I had been out of my cage for 20 days, I smelled oranges and meat in a box. I poked my head in the box and grabbed the oranges and ate them. Then I reached for the meat. Suddenly a rope fell on me. I jumped and ran as fast as I could. It was a trap to catch me, but I was too clever, and so I got away. I ran and ran, for I remembered that Mama Bear had told me to keep away from traps. I slept in the woods, safely hidden from the men who were searching for me. The next night I smelled food again. The picnickers had not left enough scraps on the beach for me, so I was very hungry. I reached in the box for the food. Bang! The lid dropped on me and I was caught in a trap. I ate the food, but I could not get out of the box. Early the next day, the zookeeper found me. "Hello, Pokey, you little runaway bear. What a monkey you've made of me!" he shouted. The keeper took me back to the zoo and put me in a bear grotto. He wanted to be sure I would not get away again. I liked the bear grotto, for there was lots of room to run and play. What fun it was to splash in the big pool of water. "Now, Pokey, you will never be able to run away again," the zookeeper said. "You won't climb those 12-foot walls, and you can't get across the deep ditch. You are safe here." The bear grotto was the best home I had found since I left my cave in the mountains of India. The boys and girls threw peanuts, popcorn, and candy to me. I soon learned to sit up so that the boys and girls would throw more peanuts to me. Sometimes I would sit in the pool of water and lie back on its smooth side. I lived in the bear grotto for about 6 months. Then I decided it was time for me to look for Mama Bear again. The walls of the bear grotto were steep. Again and again I tried to climb up the wall, but I always slipped back. How would I ever find Mama Bear inside these walls? One day when no one was watching me, I climbed up the high wall of the grotto. It was a real climb, all right, but I finally reached the top. I ran to a high fence and climbed over it. Once more, I was free. I was hungry, and I started to look for food. Sniff, sniff. Yes, I smelled food, so I ran to find it. I saw people eating their picnic dinners. I decided to ask for something to eat, but as soon as the women saw me, they screamed and ran away from me. I didn't bother them, for all I wanted was something to eat. When the lady screamed, I got scared, so I scampered up the nearest tree. Everything was fine in the big tree until I saw the zookeeper coming. He stood under the tree, coaxing me to come down. Finally, I decided to obey, but I did not slide down the tree trunk as the zookeeper expected. Instead, I jumped and landed almost on top of the zookeeper. I started running, but the zookeeper came after me with a rope. I saw he was going to catch me, so I turned around and ran as fast as my little legs would carry me. I ran straight toward the bear grotto. If I could only get there, I was sure the zookeeper would be glad to see me safe back in my home. I was in such a hurry to get back to my grotto, I made a serious mistake. I jumped over the wrong fence. I scrambled down the steep wall and landed right in the grotto of 4 black bears. Their names are Oscar, Mary, Jack, and Lulabelle. I didn't have time to get acquainted, though, for those black bears didn't like me. They chased me round and round. I tried to be friendly, but they didn't like to have me in their grotto. I climbed up the wall again and slid down the other side. Whoopee! I made the worst mistake you could ever imagine. I landed in the grotto of Sam, the giant grizzly bear. Sam was sitting in the sun when I ran up to him. I wanted to be friendly and play, but he didn't like me either. He slapped me and started to fight. His mate Sue came running to help him, but Sam was so big and I was so little he didn't need any help. He squeezed me until I could hardly breathe. When I saw I could not get away from Sam the hugger, I bit his nose. I guess it hurt him, for he let me go. While this was going on, the zookeeper and his helpers were shouting, ringing bells, and firing guns, trying to scare Sam. I guess they were afraid he would squeeze me to death. I was scared too, so I climbed up the wall and slid down the other side. This time I did the right thing, for I landed in my own grotto. How nice and quiet it was. I was tired after my exciting adventure, so I lay down and went to sleep. Yes, I am Pokey, the runaway bear. If you want to see me, you will find me at Flyshacker Zoo in San Francisco. I don't know whether I'll run away again or not. I'll see about that later.
This is the story of Sally, the runaway monkey. Do you know why she ran away? One afternoon, she went to visit the dentist. He put her in his big chair and tied a bib under her chin. Then he got ready to pull 2 of Sally's teeth. Sally didn't like the look of the shiny tools on the dentist's table. So what did she do? She leaped out of the dentist's chair, ran to a window, opened the screen, and popped out as quick as a wink. Sally slid down the drain pipe and ran under some bushes. The dentist called to his assistants to help him catch Sally. They rushed outside. They looked this way and that. But where was the monkey? They walked around the building, looking under the bushes, and they searched every nook and corner. What do you suppose they found? Only a big black and gray cat. The dentist called for a policeman to come and help find Sally. The policeman in a blue uniform whistled for another policeman to help him in the strange search. Officer Flanagan took off his hat and scratched his head. "How do we go about finding a monkey?" he asked his friend. "Why not call the office and see what the sergeant suggests?" said the other policeman. Officer Flanagan picked up the telephone and asked, "Sergeant, how do you find a runaway monkey?" The police sergeant was puzzled and answered, "Just look everywhere." Sally kept out of sight the rest of that day. Bright and early the next morning, Sally climbed in the bathroom window of a home. She saw a shiny white bathtub. The monkey sat on the back of the tub and slid down to the bottom. When the woman walked into her bathroom, she saw the monkey. "Help!" she screamed. Sally was frightened. She made one jump for the window and disappeared. Sally was a curious monkey. She thought it was fun to peek into strange places. She went down the street and jumped through a bedroom window. There was a bunk bed in the corner. Now, Johnny was in the bathroom washing his face and brushing his teeth. When Johnny went back to his bedroom, imagine his surprise to see a monkey on his bed.
"Hey, Dad! There's a monkey on my bed!"
You're dreaming, Johnny. Come to breakfast.
Come and see!
Dad had been reading his morning newspaper. He had seen the story of Sally, the runaway monkey.
Do you suppose it could be that monkey?
He muttered, hurrying to the bedroom. Not only was Sally there, but Johnny's cat, Plucky, was romping on the bed with the monkey. They were turning somersaults and tumbling about in great glee. When Sally saw Johnny and his father, she zipped out the window. Again, she was free. Sally frolicked from house to house in the neighborhood. Mrs. Brown called to the policeman who was walking along the sidewalk.
She's in my kitchen!
Mrs. Green called to the policeman.
There's the monkey on my garbage can eating lettuce leaves.
6-year-old Susan clapped her hands and shouted,
Oh, look! There's the monkey running along our fence!
but no one was able to get near Sally to catch her. All this time, Sally was only 2 blocks from her home. The runaway monkey had come from the faraway land of India to live in the big medical building high on a hill in the big city. She had lived in a clean, cozy cage for 3 years. When Sally had jumped out of the window of the dentist's office, she had found herself in an exciting city in a big world. She was having a wonderful time. She was not ready to go home. Sally visited the apartment where 2 nurses lived. While the young women were eating lunch, they saw Sally sitting on their back porch looking at them. One nurse ran to the cupboard to get a banana, while the other woman hurried to telephone the dentist. The nurse put the banana on the windowsill. Sally took the banana, peeled it carefully, and ate it. When the men came to catch Sally, she escaped through a hole that only a monkey could find. Then Sally had her picture taken. This is how it happened. A newspaper photographer asked the nurses if he could set up his camera in their apartment. He thought the monkey might come back for another banana. He fastened one end of a string to the shutter of his camera and then tied a banana to the other end. If Sally came back and took the banana, she would pull the string and snap the camera. In this way, she would take her own picture. Sure enough, Sally came back for lunch. She saw the banana and wanted it. The clever monkey carefully peeled it, took out the good fruit, but left the peeling so it did not pull the string. The photographer was watching inside the room. When Sally did not pull the string, the man snapped her picture anyway. Once more, the monkey leaped to safety. The man had her picture, but Sally was still free. The frisky monkey was having a gay time. People left food for her everywhere she went. She would find fruit on windowsills, peanuts on back porches, and cookies and slices of bread on stairways. There were plenty of dark corners where she could sleep hidden from searchers. What fun it was to watch the people try to catch her. Sally could jump away from them every time. Dozens of boys and girls chased her on their bicycles and skates, but she would climb a tree or leap from one roof to another before they got too near. One day, the policemen, the dentist, the photographers, and the newspaper reporters made up their minds they must catch Sally. The monkey had been running about long enough. Officer Flanagan telephoned the fire chief.
Could you send some firemen to help us catch Sally?
Yes, I guess so, the fire chief said with a laugh. We'll send a truck with ladders. The next morning, everyone in the neighborhood was on the lookout for Sally. 7 firemen, 3 policemen, and newspaper reporters and photographers were ready. 3 animal keepers had come from the medical building with nets to catch Sally. Soon there was news that Sally was playing in the park with the wild rabbits and the quail. Then she was seen perched on the top of a 2-story house. Next, she was found eating a breakfast of melon rind and boiled potato she had found in a garbage can. What a little monkey she was. A housewife called from her window,
Here she is!
The people on the sidewalk looked up and saw Sally sitting on the roof eating an orange. She threw the peelings down to the men who were trying to catch her. The fire truck came, and the firemen raced up to the house with their ladders. Quickly, they climbed onto the roof. "We'll catch her now," one fireman called to the others. The firemen walked up and down the roof looking for Sally. Where was she? She had scooted down the side of the chimney and dropped to an upstairs porch. Before the firemen could climb down to the porch, Sally skipped to the housetop next door.
"That monkey certainly is a funny little guy," said Officer Flanagan as he trudged back to his motorcycle. "She is making a monkey out of me."
When Mr. White got home that evening from work, he saw garbage scattered all over his back porch, and he muttered,
Those horrid youngsters. I'll go next door and tell their mother about it.
Mr. White started down the front steps when, plop, a lettuce leaf hit him on the head. Mr. White looked up and saw Sally grinning at him from the gutter on the roof. Pointing his finger at Sally, he said,
Ah, so you're the mischief maker that scattered the garbage.
Suddenly, Mr. White thought of the 3 little monkeys his uncle had brought him from India on his 7th birthday. They were a paperweight carved in stone, and as a boy, he had kept the monkeys on his dresser. One monkey had his hands over his eyes, and underneath were the words, "See no evil." Another monkey had his hands over his ears with the words, "Hear no evil." The third monkey had his hands over his mouth with the words, "Speak no evil." As Mr. White remembered his little stone monkeys, he was glad he had not gone to his neighbor and spoken unkind words. Bill, a young man working on the roof of a building, thought he had Sally cornered. The monkey and the man came face to face on top of the building. Bill chased the monkey to a corner where he was sure he could catch her. Sally saw the man coming closer and closer. She was frightened. Then she made a noise at Bill like a tea kettle boiling. "Shh," she hissed. Bill stopped. Then slowly he backed away. He was afraid to pick up Sally because he knew monkeys can bite. While Bill wondered what to do, Sally jumped from the roof to a telephone pole. She was still free. All this time, Sally's keeper at the medical building thought she would come home. He left her cage door open day and night.
If people would only stop feeding her, she might come home, he said.
She's really having fun, I guess, the dentist said with a smile. For 11 days, the little runaway monkey frolicked about the big city. It was a gay holiday for Sally. Then one morning, Sally capered toward the medical building. She had decided to go back to her nice home where her monkey friends lived. On the way, she saw some men working on a new building. She was curious to see what they were doing, so she skipped over to watch. She ran up the front steps and into the new building. It was a big place. It was going to be a new hospital. No one was around when she entered the building. She looked here and there and went up the stairs. She saw some men down the hall, so she quickly darted up the stairway to the 3rd floor. Sally sat in a window for a while, watching the cars and the people down below. She thought someone saw her, so she ran up another flight of stairs. Up and up and up she went, until she reached the top of the 15-story building. My, it was high up there. Sally looked out on the big, wide world. She could even see the blue ocean on the west. Then some workmen spied Sally. They came slowly toward her, hoping she would not see them.
Sally can't get away this time,
one workman whispered, looking down the 15 stories to the street. Poor Sally was scared when she saw the men coming toward her. She wished she had never run away. She looked this way and that way. What could she do? Where could she go? She ran to the edge of the roof and slipped over the edge. She hung on to the edge with her 2 hands. As she swung back and forth, she looked at the ground far below. It was so far down, and there was no roof or porch nearby where she could jump. Poor Sally was frightened as the men came closer and closer. When the men were about to grab Sally, she let go and jumped out into space, and down, down, down she went. Sally hit the ground and lay still. She looked like a tiny ball of fur. A workman rushed over to pick up the monkey. Was she dead? He carried her gently to the medical building. The doctor came running to care for her. The doctor listened to Sally's heart. Yes, it was beating, and the monkey was breathing. She was not dead. The doctor examined Sally carefully. Then they put her in front of a strange machine and took X-ray pictures of her. When the doctor looked at the X-ray pictures, he said to his assistant, "She has no broken bones, and I can't see any injuries." "Do you think Sally will live?" the nurse asked hopefully. "Yes, I think so," the doctor answered. The dentist and his assistants tiptoed around the clean white room. Visitors could not come to see Sally. Finally, a photographer was allowed to take a picture of the sad-faced monkey as she lay perfectly still. An hour later, she opened her black eyes. She raised her fuzzy head and looked around. She was lying on the softest bed she had ever lain on. Once more, she laid her head on the small white sheet and sighed. It was good to be home. Sally slept. When she awoke, the doctor gave her some fruit juice. She sipped it and looked up at the doctor as though to say, "Bring me my dinner. I'm hungry." Sally was tired and her bones ached. She was sorry she had run away. It was a happy day when she was moved back to her own cage. The telephone began to ring. Someone wanted to know how Sally was. It rang again and again, for many people in the big city wanted to know about Sally. "Yes, she is doing fine," the doctor answered happily over and over. Sally kept up a busy chatter in her cage. Don't you suppose Sally was telling her monkey friends about her exciting adventures? A few days after Sally's dizzy leap, the director of the city zoo called the doctor.
Everyone in the city loves the little monkey and has been interested in her adventures, the zoo director told the dentist. Wouldn't it be a good idea to have Sally in the zoo where everyone could come to see her?
What do you suppose the dentist answered? "Yes," he agreed. "Sally is interested in people, too. We'll think about it, and when she is strong and well, perhaps we can give her to the zoo." Several months later, the dentist called the zoo director on the telephone. "Sally is well and strong now. We've decided if you still want her, she can go to live in the zoo." So Sally, the runaway monkey, went to live at the zoo, where Pokey, the runaway bear, lives.